According to data from the Stanford Center on Longevity, people who maintain just four or more of these specific daily habits reduce their risk of losing independence in old age by 61%. This refers to a rapid loss of independence that forces many seniors into nursing homes much earlier than necessary. It is the difference between living on your own terms or living on someone else's schedule. And the number one habit on this list is what Johns Hopkins University has shown to be the single most important predictor of both cognitive and physical independence after age 75. Stay with me, because this could truly change how you look at the rest of your life. Now, let us start with something that might sound too simple to be life-changing, but the science behind it is absolutely incredible. Number 6, drink water strategically, not just out of habit. This is something most people get wrong about staying hydrated after age 75. They think their kidneys filter water just like they did at age 45. That is simply not true. After age 70, your kidneys lose about 40% of their filtering efficiency. Your body's thirst signals also weaken significantly, meaning you might not actually feel thirsty, even when you are severely dehydrated. And your body's ability to transport oxygen and nutrients to your muscles and brain drops drastically with every single percent of fluid lost. Imagine your circulatory system as a river transportation network. When the river's water level drops, transport trucks slow down, cargo gets lost, and the entire system begins to fail. That is exactly what mild chronic dehydration does to an aging body. Research from the European Journal of Nutrition, which followed 3,500 adults over age 70, showed that those who maintained a steady daily water intake of over 1 milliliter per day showed health improvements. Drinking 8 liters of water was shown to reduce urinary tract infections by 38%, cut falls by 29%, since dehydration seriously impairs balance and reaction times, and lead to significantly better scores on short-term memory tests. The brain is about 75% water. Even a mere 2% drop in hydration causes measurable cognitive decline at any age. But after age 75, this impact is much worse because the brain's backup mechanisms already have to work harder just to maintain basic functions. This is the key difference that makes this habit so common among exceptionally healthy older adults. They do not just drink water when they happen to think of it. They drink 35 to 470 milliliters of water the moment they wake up in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else. This is because the body loses water overnight through breathing and light sweating, and after age 75, that overnight fluid loss is typically 30% higher than it is in middle age. Then they drink a small glass with each meal and another in the mid-afternoon. This next tip is crucial. Pair your morning water with a tiny amount of sodium, not regular table salt, but a pinch of high-quality sea salt or an electrolyte tablet. This is because after age 75, your kidneys have a harder time retaining sodium. And without enough sodium, plain water will just pass right through your body instead of being fully absorbed into your cells, where it is actually needed. Margaret, an 81-year-old from Boise, Idaho, came to see me complaining of afternoon brain fog, dizziness when standing up, and a feeling like her head was wrapped in cotton. She was not severely dehydrated. She was just chronically underhydrated. We made one simple change, timing her water intake properly and adding a tiny amount of electrolytes in the morning. 6 weeks later, she told me it felt as if someone had washed the windows of her mind. Her balance improved, and her afternoon fatigue was dramatically reduced. One simple habit, but the results were life-changing. Number 5, do resistance exercises at least twice a week. I need to clear this up because I see it misunderstood all the time. When I say resistance exercises, I do not mean going to the gym and lifting heavy weights. I am talking about any movement that requires your muscles to work against a force, whether that is resistance bands, light dumbbells, wall push-ups, or even carrying groceries with purpose. This distinction is incredibly important after age 75 because of a process called anabolic resistance. Let me explain what that means. Anabolic resistance is the reduced ability of aging muscle cells to respond to protein and exercise signals. In practical terms, this means that after age 75, your body needs more signals, more intentional resistance, just to maintain the same amount of muscle that a 50-year-old can maintain with half the effort. Your muscles are not lazy, they are just harder to reach. And if you do not challenge them regularly, they will begin a process called sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass and strength. Research from the Mayo Clinic has linked this to a 47% increased risk of falling, a 53% higher chance of being unable to perform basic daily tasks within 5 years, and a significantly shortened overall lifespan. A study from Tufts University followed adults aged 75 to 85 who started strength training twice a week. After just 10 weeks, participants showed an average 37% increase in leg strength, a 28% improvement in their balance scores, and, what always surprises people, a dramatic improvement in insulin sensitivity, which directly affects your energy, inflammation levels, and cognitive function. The mitochondria in your muscle cells, which are essentially your body's power plants, regenerate much more efficiently with resistance training. You are not just building muscle, you are rebuilding the energy infrastructure of your entire body. The approach is simple: 2 to 3 sessions per week, 20 to 30 minutes each, focusing on major muscle groups like your legs, hips, and back. Resistance bands are ideal for seniors because they provide progressive resistance without impacting your joints. And here's a tip nobody tells you: do your resistance training within 30 minutes of consuming 25 to 30 grams of protein. This is because after age 75, the window when your muscles can most efficiently absorb protein for recovery is shorter and less responsive than it is in younger people. At your age, timing is not optional. It is essential. Number 4, maintain a consistent and purposeful sleep schedule. After age 75, your circadian rhythm, the 24-hour internal clock in your body, begins to shift and weaken significantly. Your brain produces about 70% less melatonin than it did when you were 30. Slow-wave sleep, the deepest and most physically restorative stage of sleep, drops by up to 80% compared to your 30s. This is also the stage when human growth hormone is released, the hormone responsible for cell repair, immune function, and muscle maintenance. And here is what most people do not realize: poor sleep after age 75 is about more than just feeling tired. A study from the University of California, Berkeley, found that adults over 70 with sleep disturbances had a 68% higher buildup of amyloid plaques in their brains, the same type of plaque linked to Alzheimer's disease. Seniors who sleep well do not just get more sleep, they get more consistent sleep. They go to bed within the same 30-minute window every night. They wake up at the same time every morning, even on weekends. They keep their bedrooms at a cool 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, because the body's ability to regulate its temperature during sleep becomes less efficient after 75, or about 24 degrees Celsius. And a cooler environment supports the deep sleep that your brain desperately needs. They avoid screens for 60 minutes before bed, not just because of the blue light, but because the mental stimulation keeps the prefrontal cortex active in a way that delays sleep by an average of 47 minutes in adults over 70, according to research from Harvard Medical School. You should pair your consistent sleep schedule with 10 minutes of slow diaphragmatic breathing before bed. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and digest mode, and research shows it reduces nighttime cortisol levels by up to 22%, making it significantly easier for older adults to fall into and stay in restorative slow-wave sleep. Number 3, eat protein intentionally and space it out evenly. This is where I see the most dangerous misconception among seniors, and as a doctor, it truly concerns me. The idea that you need less protein as you get older is not just wrong. It might be one of the most harmful nutritional myths ever passed down. The truth is quite the opposite. After age 75, due to the anabolic resistance I mentioned earlier, your body actually needs 50 to 75% more dietary protein per pound of body weight than a healthy 30-year-old just to get the same muscle-saving benefits. Yet, most seniors I meet eat only half the protein they need. often because their appetite naturally declines with age, and carbohydrate-rich foods are simply easier to prepare and eat. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, which studied over 2,700 adults aged 70 to 85, showed that those who consumed at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily, spread evenly across 3 or more meals, maintained significantly more muscle mass, had a 41% lower rate of hospitalizations from fall-related injuries, and showed noticeably better overall health, especially when it came to their immune response to common infections like the flu and pneumonia. Think of protein as the bricks your body uses to rebuild itself overnight. Every night while you sleep, your body breaks down old, damaged tissue and replaces it with new tissue. Without enough bricks, without enough protein, that rebuilding process is incomplete. Over months and years, this structural protein deficit becomes severe. Here is the practical approach. Aim for 25 to 35 grams of protein in each of your 3 main meals. This is equivalent to about 4 to 5 ounces, or 113 to 140 grams, of chicken, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, or beans per meal. The reason protein distribution is so critical after age 75 is that aging muscles can only utilize about 35 to 40 grams of protein at a time for synthesis. Any excess is simply oxidized for energy rather than used for repair. Spacing it out evenly makes every single gram count. 78-year-old John from Scottsdale, Arizona, came to see me after his daughter noticed he had lost nearly 18 pounds, which is about 8 kilograms, something his previous doctor had brushed off as normal, age-related weight loss. But it was not normal. He was losing muscle, not fat, and his grip strength, a crucial predictor of longevity in older adults, had plummeted into the bottom 15% for his age group. We restructured his diet to focus on protein pacing. 12 weeks later, he had gained back 11 pounds of lean muscle mass. His grip strength rebounded to the 60th percentile, and he told me with unshielded pride that for the first time in 2 years, he carried all of his own groceries from the car to the house. Pair your protein-rich meals with a small amount of vitamin C, an orange, some bell peppers, a squeeze of lemon juice, because vitamin C is essential for collagen synthesis, which works hand in hand with dietary protein to maintain not just your muscles, but also your connective tissues, joint cartilage, and skin elasticity, the very structures that hold your body together. Second, engage in intentional daily social interaction. I told you earlier in this video that one of the top 2 things would surprise you. This is the one that catches most people off guard because it sounds too soft, too emotional, to be medical advice. But let me be perfectly clear. The research on social engagement and longevity in adults over 75 is not soft science. It is some of the hardest, most reproducible data in modern geriatrics. A landmark study from Brigham Young University, analyzing data from over 300,000 adults over decades, found that social isolation carries a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Let me repeat that. Being chronically socially isolated is as dangerous to your lifespan as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. For adults over 75, the National Institute on Aging found that loneliness accelerates cognitive decline by up to 64%, increases the risk of dementia by 41%, and dramatically spikes inflammatory markers in your blood, specifically interleukin-6 and C-reactive protein, which directly damage cardiovascular tissue, immune function, and neural connectivity. Here is the physiology of why this works on such a deep level. Meaningful social interaction, not passive screen time, not watching television in the same room as someone, but real human-to-human connection, triggers the release of oxytocin, which downregulates cortisol, dampens inflammation, and lights up the prefrontal cortex in ways that keep neural pathways robust. Think of your social brain like a muscle. The neurons that fire during heartfelt conversations, shared laughter, debates, and emotional connections are the exact same neurons that maintain your memory, decision-making, and sense of self. When those neurons go silent for weeks at a time, they begin to prune away. And after age 75, Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to forge new connections, is already significantly reduced, making it much harder to recover those unused pathways. The solution is not complex, but it must be intentional. Aim for at least one meaningful, face-to-face social interaction every single day. A phone call counts if it is a heartfelt conversation, a community group, a religious gathering, a walking partner, or a regular lunch with a neighbor. What does not count for neurological benefits is passive social presence. You have to actively think, respond, laugh, disagree, and share. That active engagement is the stimulus that keeps your brain's structure intact. Walking with a friend, taking a light exercise class with others, gardening with a neighbor. Research from the University of British Columbia shows that combining social interaction with even mild physical activity has a synergistic effect on BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that is vastly greater than doing either activity alone. BDNF is essentially fertilizer for your brain cells. You want as much of it as possible. And now, for the single most important one, the habit that fewer than 12% of adults over age 75 maintain consistently, and what researchers at Johns Hopkins University have called the most underutilized longevity tool available to older adults without a prescription. First, purposeful daily cognitive challenge, not crossword puzzles and not passive reading. While both have value, I am talking about something more specific, more demanding, and more transformative. It is the practice of learning something truly new every day. A skill, a language, an instrument, or a new form of creative expression that forces your brain to operate in a state of productive discomfort. Here is why this takes the top spot. After age 75, the brain begins to preferentially rely on established neural pathways. It becomes incredibly efficient at doing what is familiar and incredibly resistant to building what is new. This is not a character flaw, it is a survival mechanism. An aging brain conserves metabolic energy by defaulting to the familiar. But here's the catch. That very preference for the familiar is the mechanism that erodes your cognitive reserve. Cognitive reserve is the brain's resilience buffer. It is your ability to compensate for age-related structural changes and still function at a high level. Think of it like the RAM in a computer. The larger your cognitive reserve, the more damage your brain can tolerate before you ever show symptoms of decline. Research from the Lothian Birth Cohort study at the University of Edinburgh, which followed over 1,000 adults from age 70 to their late 80s, showed that those who engaged in novel, challenging cognitive activities for at least 30 minutes a day had a 47% slower rate of brain atrophy on MRI scans, maintained significantly better processing speed and episodic memory, and were 38% less likely to be diagnosed with dementia in the following years. A separate study from the Rush Memory and Aging Project found that older adults who described their daily lives as intellectually active had brain function equivalent to adults 10 years younger on standardized neurological tests. The mechanism here is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. Although this adaptability decreases with age, it never completely disappears. The brain retains the capacity for meaningful structural change well into your 80s, but only if the stimulus is strong enough. Learning something new is that stimulus. Learning a new language activates 5 different brain regions simultaneously, and studies by the American Academy of Neurology show it can delay the onset of dementia by an average of 4 to 5 years. Learning to play an instrument engages fine motor control, auditory processing, memory, and emotional regulation in a coordinated symphony that almost no other activity can match. Even learning to cook a new dish from scratch, because it requires reading, sequencing, sensory attention, and motor skills, provides a meaningful cognitive challenge. Here is the practical approach. Pick a brand new skill every 3 to 4 months and dedicate at least 20 to 30 minutes a day to actively learning it. The key word here is active. Watching someone play the guitar on YouTube is not learning the guitar. Sitting with the instrument in your hands, struggling with a new chord progression, that is learning the guitar. That struggle, that constructive discomfort, is where the neurological benefits live. It is the cognitive equivalent of resistance training. Resistance is the entire point. 79-year-old Robert, from Portland, Oregon, retired after 40 years as a civil engineer and, by his own description, spent the first 3 years of retirement doing almost nothing that truly challenged his mind. He came to see me after noticing he was having a harder time remembering names and following complex conversations. His MRI showed age-appropriate changes, nothing alarming, but his cognitive reserve score was lower than I wanted to see. I gave him one prescription: pick something he had always wanted to learn and work on it every single day. He chose oil painting, something he had never done before in his life. At first, his painting was terrible, and he would be the first to admit it. 18 months later, he had completed 23 paintings, joined a local art group, which also addressed his second habit, and follow-up cognitive assessments showed improvement in 3 out of 5 areas measured.